Hello there, my name's Julian Widdows. I'm Development Director for a company called Swordfish Studios. We're a UK-based development company out of Birmingham, England. And this is Cold Winter. It's a PlayStation 2 first-person shooter designed for the console and designed for the console audience with a whole host of key features. So I'm going to have a play, tell you a bit about it, and hopefully you'll get to play it in about a year's time. What we've done with Cold Winter is we've gone back to the ground level. We've really thought about how to make a game that would work for the consoles. And one of the biggest problems consoles have is that most of the audience and most of the people out there will never get to finish a game. Over 85% of the people who buy a game won't finish it. So what we've done is create a game that's short and fat rather than long, thin and linear. And this means that the story takes place over 3 separate story threads, which appear to be completely independent stories. You make a decision on which one you go on, and then you follow this story thread. It has its own environment, it has its own characters, it has its own locations. However, when you start to play all 3 threads, you start to realise they're actually interconnected, and you start going back into locations that you've seen on other threads. So they have their own locations, but they have shared locations. And in these shared locations, you and the other characters you play with, your NPC friends, Kim and Danny Parish, carry out different roles. So you see them flying a helicopter while you're firing a gun out the side, but when the threads interconnect, you're the one firing the gun out the side as they fly the helicopter. And this gives us a completely unique structure that will enable most people to finish at least one of the threads. It might take about 6 hours, but will enable the hardcore gamer and the really keen gamer to go back and learn more and more about the game, see new locations, get new weapons, of which we've got well over 30, and ultimately learn an awful lot more about the world we've created. So, without any more waffling on, I want to show you a bit of the game. What we've tried to do is really raise the bar with what's expected from a PlayStation 2 game. Generally speaking, PlayStation 2 shooters and PlayStation 2 games in general use a technique called vertex lighting to create very bright, colourful environments, and that tends to be the standard technique. We're using full light maps, which means the lighting is often baked into the textures before you see it in the game. And this gives the look you can see on screen, where you've got shadows casting onto the floor, you've got these lovely volumetric effects coming in through the window which give that misty feeling, and it's a look that's not really that common on the PS2. The other thing we're doing is using real shadows, real physics, and this complements the light mapping technique. Now, everything in this game uses real physics. If I knock into these chains near the start of the level, you can see the chain swinging, and that's modelled using real physics. So what you can see here is, as I bump into the chains, as I said, you've got the shadows projecting on the walls, moving, and that's very unique. That's not an easy technique, and we call it mock stencil buffer shadows. And there they're knocking away. So as we go through the level, you'll see more and more of this. As I said, everything uses real physics. You can shove objects around, knock them around. This is your cohort, the Kim character, and although you can't see it at the moment, we're actually doing full facial motion capture. What I'm going to do now is start playing through the level and show you some of the cool features we've got as we run through it. You've seen some of the visual stuff. I think one of the most important things about any shooter is the AI, and we've really gone to town on the AI. To that end, we've actually got a fully dynamic AI system that thinks for itself, that operates independently. It's not pre-scripted, it's not predictable. I can't actually always say exactly how it's going to work, but it generally works and puts up a good fight. So as we come around this corner, we've got the guard behind the table. He dynamically creates cover, and what I'm going to do is, I'm just hiding, lowering myself down, put a bullet in his head. It's relatively easy combat. This is a tutorial level and it's the first level of the game, so we don't want it to be too hard at this stage. A bit more of the physics we were talking about. Now, I know for a fact with the amount of noise I've just made, a guard came down the stairs to find me. He's now run off to set off the alarm. There's nothing I can do about that. I mean, I could chase after him, but I want to show you this happening. So he's gone off to set the alarm off. That alarm will start kicking off as reinforcements come down the stairs. You've seen the ragdoll. As you see as well, when you shoot people in various extremities and parts of the body, they animate differently. So as we go through here, what we'll see is as I shoot the guards and kill them, depending on where you shoot them, they animate differently and then ragdoll. I tell you, couldn't be any worse than getting killed on the crapper, could it really? So we're going down here, have a bit of an investigate, see what's going on. You'll also notice that the targeting reticule is going red from time to time. When the reticle goes red, that means the assist is on, and my fire is being delicately drawn onto the target. One thing we didn't want to do is take the control away from the player, so we don't like it when the crosshair snaps to enemy targets, because then you know you're going to hit them. You still have to have the skill of getting the crosshair onto the enemy, but if it's on there or around there, your fire gets drawn onto the enemy, and that gives you that little bit of assistance that helps. I mean, after all, you're interfacing to the game with a controller, and it's not necessarily an easy thing to use, certainly for a first-person shooter where you need absolute control to take part in the combat. We're currently about a year and a quarter through development, and we've got about another year's development to go. So at the moment, we're about halfway through the overall cycle. We're now working full-time on levels. We've got 13 levels, at least 8 environments, vehicle driving subsections, completely unique combined items mechanic, where things you find around the level, like glass bottles, rags, and petrol, can be combined to make Molotov cocktails. You can combine poison and a business card to make a poison business card, put a disguise on, give that to a guard, he'll accept it if he's manning a gate, choke to death, blood will come out his mouth, and he'll collapse. We're using all sorts of things to give as rich and as immersive an experience as possible on the PlayStation 2. And to say the very least, the AI is out of this world. At the moment, we've got the basis of Team AI going in. Now, they will actually operate as fully cohesive and operational teams. They know how to use cover. They know how to move between cover. They know how to create cover. So if there's a table, they'll tip it over, they'll make cover. If there's posts, they'll get behind that cover. They'll use it to protect themselves from your fire. If you come from one angle, they'll go to another angle. And we can actually see this if we go out into the courtyard. So I'm out in this courtyard, and what you've got is a couple of guards patrolling and a few guards on guard duty. What I'm going to do is kick off a fight. So now all 4 guys start advancing on me, and you'll notice that as I go into cover, they start putting down suppressing fire, and they're trying to gradually move up to better positions. Now you'll see here and here 2 guards have actually gone into cover because one of their mates is out in the open. He knows he's exposed, so he goes into cover. While I was trying to kill him, they moved up and got into cover points. And while I was looking, he moved into a different cover point. It's slightly more exposed because I'm out in the open. And now they're all dead. And that's the basics of it. Obviously, when the game's finished, you're going to have them moving as a team, operating more fully as a team, with a commander giving them orders. They'll throw the grenades to each other, they'll throw magazines to each other, they'll know which weapons they've each got. So if one's firing rockets at you, the other ones will put down suppressing fire. And that basically is Cold Winter.